Good morning, and welcome to another week of Journey with Christ. I'm your host, Mark Mitchell, a preaching minister here at the Park Avenue Church of Christ here in Charleston, West Virginia. So glad you've tuned in today. And today we begin a new series. We're going to begin a new class. Don't know how long we're going to have them because of some things that's coming up. But we're going to be in the book of Psalms. And as usual, I am joined by Steve Fox, a minister for over 50 years.
So we only have 150 chapters to cover, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take the first two.
No, I'm saving a couple of them for you.
Okay.
How's everything going?
I think in my personal life, everything's going very well. I look at the world, and I don't know how in the world we got this messed up with the Mexican border, and I feel so sorry for those people from Afghanistan. They know that once the Americans leave, they're going to die.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine living a life like that, where you're looking over your shoulder 24 hours a day. And these people that are carrying kids, and I don't know, maybe you saw the video of the soldier that had the little kid by his diaper and held him up to another soldier around a barbed wire fence. Put him down on the other side. You see stuff like that, it just tears you apart.
Yeah.
Man can be so inhumane against other men.
Yes. I mean, the level of depravity has no scale.
It does not.
And
we are proud of the United States of America because we can kill people faster than anybody can do it.
I know. But
well, one of these days that'll all be gone, and it certainly won't have anything to do with you and me trying to get it there. Somebody else is in control of that.
Well, as that is a pretty good introduction for what we're going to talk about today, and we're going to be Psalms 1 is a very popular psalm. I mean, in fact, it's it for very good reason. It has some amazing. It makes statements and declarations and truths that it lays out right from the get-go. And why don't you read that one for us? Psalm 1.
Let me say one thing about the Psalms. These are written by several different people.
Yes, and just not David.
David wrote the vast majority of them, but other people also contributed to the book of Psalms. This was their song. This was the Hebrew songbook
And prayer book.
And prayer book. When you and I come into a service and we sit down and we read together, that's what they were doing, but they didn't have the songbooks we have today. They had the Psalms.
Yes.
So they were singing those songs, and sometimes just reading them as what we would call a scripture reading.
Or praying them.
And I had somebody tell me many, many years ago, if you're ever stuck in your prayer life, and we all are,
go to
just
Psalms.
sit down and read the Psalms, and read the Psalms back to you.
That's right.
After you read them like God is actually speaking to you.
It's amazing.
Because he is.
Paul, when he does a lot of his prayers in the Bible, I mean, some of them are just sections of them, just quotes from the book of Psalms.
And when you do that, it helps you keep the word up here.
Yes, it does.
If you say them and repeat them out loud, or even better, if you write them.
Yeah.
If you write one of the Psalms, now I wouldn't suggest you try to write all 150 of them.
No.
But if you write a song, if you write a song, it's sticking in your head a whole lot better. And they were praying to God and they were singing to God through. This was the method that they used.
Yes.
Well, you want me to read chapter 1?
Yeah. Read the whole chapter.
How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. And he will be like a tree firmly planted by the streams of water, which yield its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and in whatever he does, he prospers. But the wicked are not so, but they are like chaff which the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. That sets up the whole book of Psalms. They're good guys and bad guys, and you get to choose which one you want to be.
And again, this theme that permeates from the Bible from beginning to end, choose wisely. And I just don't, I guess at times it frustrates me in that our society does not want to be held accountable for its choices.
Mm-hmm.
They want to choose without consequences, but that's impossible. In fact, you can't, in nature itself, that law is everywhere. Everywhere. So if you choose to eat nothing but sweets, then you're going to deal with the fact that you're going to have no teeth, extremely huge, and not live very long.
Mm-hmm.
And
so why'd you look at me when you said that? You're just talking about in general, right?
In general,
okay.
Yes. Yeah. So choices have an important point, and there's no better way to begin the book of Psalms, which was a worship book in essence. And it says right from the get-go, when they arranged these, and the Hebrews arranged them. I mean, it wasn't David.
Right.
I mean, it was, they just picked them and started, this is the first one. And you love the idea that they picked this one to be the first one.
And in all of these Psalms, but it starts out very clearly in chapter 1, in all of these Psalms, we are told that there are consequences to what we decide.
Yep.
And in the very first line, it says, "Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked." Well, do I really have people around me who are counseling me, and they are wicked people who are sending? Gosh, just look at life. Just look at the people. Now, for some of us, we don't have to deal with that very much because we don't put ourselves in those situations. But we still might listen to the wicked and listen to the counseling. But if we do and we act those things out, we're going to pay the consequences. And everything in here is, I think the easiest way to learn anything about the Psalms is he talks about short consequences and long-term consequences. If I want to do something and it'll affect me in the next 5 minutes, that's one thing. But I can do something and listen to the counsel of the wicked, and it can affect me for 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, until the end of my life.
I mean, the book of Deuteronomy just basically lays out that truth from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. You know, the Lord says, if you do this, this is what's possible.
Yeah.
You do this, this is what's likely.
If most people looked at the short-term consequences, there's a whole lot of things that we wouldn't do.
A lot of things.
Many things. Nobody ever said, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to listen to the counsel of the wicked, these people who are telling me that we can do this, and we're going to go in and we're going to rob a bank and we're going to get $50,000 and we're going to hightail it out of there, and they're never going to catch us.
Yep.
Now that's somebody who's looking at long-term and messing it up really good, because he's going to go in there with a bunch of his buddies, rob the bank, leave, and 5 minutes later they're going to arrest him and put him in jail.
At best, he's going to have a few days with some money.
Those are the consequences.
And then he's going to live with the consequences of that. I remember the first time in my youth when I found out that, because, you know, there's this thought process that you grow up with as a young child, that if I do that, I'm going to immediately get spanked, get time out, lose privileges. Something's going to happen. And then you find out, oh, it's not immediate. I can actually buy a little time with this. Then you learn, as a youth, you start processing, okay, risk, reward.
Exactly.
And you start learning that process, and you carry it all the way with you, that thought process, all the way through adulthood, which then comes to your process for deciding, is this something I want to do or not want to do?
Well, part of that is making a decision about once you're going to do something, once you decide in your head you're going to do something, and you're kind of guessing it may be not the right thing to do, you're looking around for your mom and dad.
Yeah, well, you're looking for somebody.
Where are mom and dad? Well,
we're looking in your rearview mirror for a cop.
Exactly. Where's the cops? Where's your mom and dad? Where's grandma and grandpa? But you're going to get to a time in your life where grandma and grandpa aren't going to be there and mom and dad aren't going to be there. And you still have to decide, what do I do with this? Do I listen to the counsel of the wicked? Because in our society, I'd hate to be a kid growing up in this environment right now.
No.
Because
my propensity for things.
Yeah, we had enough.
I had enough trouble with 60s and 70s. There's no way I could have done anything with the teens and the aughts in the beginning. I mean, I would have been I don't even want to think about it.
It's everywhere.
I know. Well, I don't want to spend a tremendous amount of time on this one, but because it has been studied a lot. But it is without a doubt the mindset that is required. And, all good lessons have an illustration.
Yeah.
And the illustration of the tree planted by the waters is by far the easiest to understand, because that tree will never go thirsty. That tree, if anybody who's, like, I live out in the country, and I've got trees around my property, and now, of course, in West Virginia, we don't deal with this quite as much as other places, because we have a lot of springs and water in our hills and so forth. But the trees that have the root system that can reach the water survive and make it and flourish, and they grow healthy. They don't grow deformed, because all trees can eventually grow because they can find a little bit of water to get them by. But that tree that grows really straight and tall, really straight and full, and whose base foundation of its root system can withstand storms, it can withstand winds, it can withstand droughts, it can withstand tremendous amounts of things that go on in its life. Whereas a tree that's not having a hard time finding water, but also where it finds water, it can't grow a root system to.
And as you grow, you decide which root system you want to grab a hold of.
That's right. You decide where you feed.
Yeah. And one of my favorite songs is the Three Dog Night saying, "Mama told me not to come."
Yeah.
Now, Mama gave him some advice, but he didn't listen to it. He listened to his friends. He listened to the people who were the counsel of the wicked. And there's a line in there that says, sometimes I go to parties, sometimes I leave at 4. It's hard to leave when you can't find the door.
Yeah.
But Mama gave me the right advice, but I didn't listen to that. I listened to all my buddies and my friends who were giving me counsel that was wicked.
And then, of course, we have at the very end, "For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction." And again, 6 verses that tell anybody that wants to hear what they need to know and where to look for the information.
The consequences in verse 6 are very real. The Lord knows the way of the righteous. He knows the difference between wicked people and righteous people. And we can argue about definitions all you want to. There's a clear definition there. And he's talking about that definition in verse 6. But the way of the wicked will, look at that word, perish.
Yeah, well,
eventually that won't be around anymore.
Yeah.
Righteous people will live on forever. These people who want to live the way of the wicked and listen to just crazy things that you know you shouldn't do and you do them anyway, that way will perish.
Well, the reason we're doing Psalms because on Wednesday night here in our Bible class here at Park Avenue, we're going to begin a series. We're going to do a study of a few Psalms. reacquaint ourselves with some of these. But Psalm 2 is the one that I really wanted to talk about, but you can't talk about the book of Psalms without doing 1, because it's one of those, like Steve often says, it's one of those introductions that you got to look at in order to find out, where am I going on this? And I'm going to, I'll read the first part of it, Steve, and then we'll...
Well, it's just 12 verses.
Yeah, but I'm going to read the first 6.
Oh, you're not divided.
Okay. Why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth rise up and the rulers band together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their chains and throw off their shackles. The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. He rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, I've installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. When Steve came in this morning, and much to what we're talking about in his introduction there about this world, that is the question that, and I didn't look it up this morning if David wrote this one or not.
He did. And it's quoted a couple times in the New Testament.
Yeah, well, yeah, we get down here a little bit further, yeah. It's quoted a bunch of times, but David is looking around at the world that he lives in and wondering to himself, much like you and I look around, and I've talked to a bunch of people here in the last few weeks who their concern for the world that we live in right now is becoming to epidemic levels. Because I know that in our culture, through politics, there's always this idea that the new guy coming in is going to fix everything that's a mess.
Oh, yeah.
And we've had a teeter-totter thing going on here for a little while. And there were people that I'm sure that thought when Biden was coming in that everything would work its way out.
You mean somebody made promises that they didn't keep? I think you're making that up.
I am. But here's the thing. Our hope is never in what man can accomplish. And when we look around and see what people conspire to do to one another, that communities do, I mean, David is giving it a big picture thing, but you can take this truth all the way down to its minute levels in the fact that communities, you've got communities that will destroy one another, and you wonder to themselves, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And you've got, I love how this expression, let us break their chains and throw off their shackles. They think, much like one of my favorite verses in the Bible, 2 Corinthians chapter 2, where Paul talks about how he's being led like a captive into the Lord's kingdom. You know, to the world, sometimes our captivity, our shackles, our chains, look like we're imprisoned by a thought process that is harmful to us. But in truth, it's our salvation. You know, us looking at, like in Psalm 1, looking at our consequences, looking at what's in the future, what's possible, what could happen if I follow this path down. And there are kings of this earth that rise up and the rulers band together against the Lord, against his anointing, saying, let us break your chains and throw off your shackles. You know, let us help you. And in truth, they're imprisoning you. And the Lord looks at them and laughs like, you have no clue. You have no idea what I'm doing for these people. You know, what salvation I provide. And the world today is presenting, much like Psalm 1, it's giving you all kinds of advice. But that advice will lead to destruction. The Lord's instruction will lead to righteousness and salvation. And
well, as I said a little while ago, I think it's pretty clear that there are always two sides to every story here.
Yep.
And you're talking about bad consequences or good consequences. And the kings of the earth shall take their stand. They're the bad guys in this story. And the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed one. His anointed one, most of the time in the Old Testament, not always, but in the Old Testament, refers to the Messiah who's coming. There were three groups of people that were anointed in the Old Testament: prophets, priests, and kings. Prophets were anointed because of their message. Prophets, priests who worked in the worship, in the tabernacle and later in the temple, and kings. Those kings were anointed too, to say this is the leader. Well, Jesus was the only person ever who was anointed prophet, priest, and king. There were lots of them had other rulers and names, but he was the only one that ever had all three of those. So he is giving his, not just an interpretation, he is giving his rules about this will do you better in your life. This will make your life better if you follow the anointed one. If you follow the wicked, you're going. And isn't it? All of us have done it. I think all of us have done this. Make a good decision and say, "I'm glad I got out." When Mama told me not to come, I decided not to go to that party.
Yeah.
And there are lots of examples in the Old Testament about people who had a great sense of freedom because they did the right thing.
Yeah. It's hard to walk back black eyes and times in prison and night in in a recovery tank,
4 divorces.
Yeah, I mean you can't walk that stuff back.
No.
It's on your resume from here on out.
That's
it's there.
right. Yeah.
And of course.
But the question they're asking here is, how did I get there in the first place?
Yeah.
Who did I listen to? Who was my counsel?
Yeah.
Who was the anointed one who was trying to get me to do what I'm supposed to do?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, is that easy? No.
No.
No. Because we fail every day.
Verse 6. I'm going to read that again because it sets up the second part. I've installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. I will proclaim the Lord's decree. He said to me, "You are my son today. I have become your father. Ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron. You will dash them to pieces like pottery. Therefore, you kings, be wise. Be warned, you rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and celebrate his rule with trembling. Kiss his son, or he will be angry, and your way will lead to your destruction, for his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed are all who take refuge in him." We have a constant theme, and it keeps repeating itself like the clock does every day. It just keeps coming around, and it keeps happening. It's like the sun that's in the sky, that the earth revolves around. Life is lived in that truth, and the truth is the King and God that's the only place you can put your allegiance. Any place else, it's going to lead to destruction.
Yes. And you and I have talked about who has those choices and how do we react when we have those choices, and do we have those choices, or does somebody move us in a certain direction? I think it's interesting. Let me throw out my own heresy here just for a minute. Okay. But the way of the wicked will perish. That's chapter 1, verse 6. What are they going to do? Those people will perish. Now, a lot of us teach that when people die and go to hell, they will not perish. This says the wicked will perish. If you look in chapter 2, it says basically the same thing.
Yep.
His wrath soon will be kindled. How blessed are those who take refuge in him. You do homage to the Son, and you perish in the way. Just if you want to do a little word study that's very interesting, look how, not only in the Old Testament, but in the New Testament, how the gospel writers and the prophetic writers use the word perish.
Yeah.
Are they going to last?
It means an end.
It means some kind of an end. And
well, destruction by its very word does not mean continual destruction.
That's right. You can't destroy something over and over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, once it's destroyed, it's
destroyed. Okay, we're going to destroy that building right there. What are we going to do tomorrow? We're going to destroy it again.
Yeah.
What are we going to do the next day?
Destroy it again. Yeah, you're right. Going down that heresy point.
Well, you aren't in that group, but I'm trying to drag you into it every once in a while.
No.
And especially when you got a camera right there in front of us.
Yeah, it's recorded forever.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, you're right. And again, there is this admonition to serve the Lord with fear and celebrate his rule with trembling. If you ever wanted to put an idea that were two polar opposites, celebrate and trembling.
Mm-hmm.
That means you're scared to death, but you're happy as all get out. Now, that doesn't happen very often. You know?
The first thing I thought of when you said that, I was in that condition when my kids were born.
Well, the part that I could...
Especially the first one.
Yeah, well, okay, that is a very good analogy. That is the moment you're celebrating and you're scared to death at
Yes,
the same time.
yeah.
I was also thinking of being scared to death, then finding out you're not in trouble and you celebrate. You know, those opposites go together, but celebrate with trembling is an ecstatic joy that has an extreme reality to it that you're aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And you choose that path or you don't choose that path. Do whatever you want. Live in today's world without thinking you have consequences, and you will meet with the destruction or perish.
Worship the Lord with reverence and rejoice with trembling. Something else just flashed through my mind right there. The prodigal son.
Yep.
Celebration and trembling.
Yep. Yep.
You put that in my head right there, and something else went through my head.
Hey,
that doesn't happen very
it's possible. You know, it's possible. But, and again, we conclude with the same ending related to ending. Where are you going? Where are you going?
Yep.
You know, you don't... The Psalms do one thing for us, Steve. They keep asking a question and a statement at the same time. They make a statement of, this is the way. Which way are you going? And there's always the reminder at the end, decisions have consequences. All decisions have consequences.
And it doesn't take very long as a little child growing up and figuring that out.
No.
You know, if I smack my sister upside the head, I feel good about it, but my mom or my dad are probably going to see it in a little different way.
Yes.
And when you're 2 and 3 and 4, you're still making decisions about who am I going to listen to. It's a process.
It is. It is by far a process. Well, anything...
By the way, I don't hit my sister upside the head anymore.
I've seen your sister. She might hit you back. Anything you would like to conclude with today before we close this thing up for this week?
How blessed are all who take refuge in him. I would like to suggest to our audience, to our viewing audience, do that with the Psalms this week. Pray the Psalms back to God. When he says this to you, you pray that back to him. And there are gems all the way through here when we pray the psalm and back to God instead of Him praying, Him giving to us. It just brings out stuff that you wouldn't normally see.
Well, there is a huge history of the prayers of the Hebrew and Jewish people, and a lot of them are these psalms. I mean, they have a lot of prayers, and much in the same way that a lot of people pray the same prayer over and over. And I can remember thinking, well, you lose something when you keep repeating it. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
You find depth that you didn't realize was there.
Let me jump out of 1 and 2. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Pray that back to God and say, God, would you please be my shepherd?
Yeah.
You're acknowledging that He's your shepherd, but would you pray that you want Him to continue to be your shepherd, that you wouldn't need anything?
That's right. That's right. Well, that will conclude this week. We're about to enter in some various different changes. We're at least going to be adding a devotional from beginning next week that will be available hopefully primarily on Facebook as like a 5-minute little thing that it'll be made available to you, so that to help you, encourage you during the week. Our dear brother Sean and Patrick, in one of our gatherings, made an awesome statement, and it keeps running through my head. It's a long time between Sundays. And we often need encouragement. So we're going to add this devotional as an assist also, and to help each one of us from Sunday to Sunday.
Yeah.
And I would make mention also that beginning September the 1st, we're going to begin Wednesday night Bible class here at Park Avenue at 7 o'clock like we used to. And I would encourage you, if you have the opportunity, to plan on coming. Journey with Christ, we're not sure where this portion thing may go. We may continue it, or we may just do the devotionals for a while. We still haven't figured that out.
You also need to explain to them that all this is based on the fact that we may not get a call from ABC. So if we do that, if we get a call from ABC, we may have to twist this around a little bit to make time for all of it.
I think the only call we would get would be from Comedy Central. They want to do a parody on this shit. But I digress.
Don't we all?
So we will be here next week, but from that point on, I can't guarantee you anything, but we will see. But look next week for a devotional. And on behalf of Steve and I, have a great week.
As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds His people. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds His people.